Alright, I want to talk a little about winches and a pretty common problem that pretty much all of us have run into at some point. You'll be pulling with your winch, get a little slack in the cable, and next thing you know, your coils on the winch are all coming undone. They get loose, they get one over the top of the other, then they don't lay back down in there like they should, or they get pulled underneath each other and it turns into kind of a bird's nest or a knot. If you're lucky, you can pull the cable in enough to do whatever you're doing, but the only way to fix it is to spool it all out past the bad spot and roll it back in very carefully under some tension. A lot of guys will say they'll just anchor to something solid, put the truck in neutral and pull it in that way. That works, sure, but there's another option that might be a little bit better. I'm over here, you can see in the floor I've got two roller fairleads. If you've used wire rope or steel cable, you're probably familiar with these. The one on the right is the one that came with the winch. You can see it's pretty well trashed. This is the roller. It's maybe not quite an 1/8 of an inch thick. That's a 3/8 bolt with a, see if you can see it in there. That's a 3/8 bolt with a shim around it. And it's got plastic bushings that tend to break, as you can see right there. The other option is the one that I just got today and I want to talk about. This is a BA Products part number 171N, 171 November. I've got it taken apart. You'll see why in just a second. But just on the surface, this is a much better built piece of equipment. As you can see, the frame is a little over twice as thick. Instead of a 3/8 bolt with a shim on it, this is an actual 3/4 inch pin held in with snap rings. Instead of the tiny little cheap tubing rollers, this, you can see down in there, this is a solid steel roller with the only extra space being like that little 1/8 of an inch maybe taken up by the shoulder of that bronze bushing. So just on its face as a roller, or as a fairlead, this is a big upgrade. Because I mean, as you can see there, the standard working load limit for this thing is 10 tons. That's working load, not braking strength. That's your everyday kind of duty cycle rating. If you've never heard of BA Products, that's probably understandable. They're not some fly-by-night importer that just popped up, but they are a company that makes actual heavy-duty stuff for the towing and recovery industry. These guys are, they really don't market much to the hobbyist or the enthusiast market, but they focus on the guys that are out here every day using this stuff to earn a living. Now, what makes this special, and I've got it taken apart so it'll look a little funny, but this bottom roller is in a slot, and it's got these springs here. These springs go through holes in the top of the plate, and the two rollers actually, as you can see, it moves. The two rollers actually squeeze together to put a little pressure on that cable, so if you get some slack in your line, it doesn't get completely out of hand on your winch drum. I haven't tried it yet. I just got it and took it apart and started this video, so let me get it mounted up and we'll come back in a few minutes. Alright, I've got this BA tensioner roller temporarily installed here, and the reason it's temporarily installed is the next thing I want to point out. Like I said, these guys are building products for the commercial towing industry, and if you look at the included install instructions, they are actually written for someone that is mounting this thing to a flatbed like you would have on a rollback tow truck. and the way they tell you to do it is actually upside down from what I've got here. What they recommend is to take these two holes in the vertical part and bolt those to some angle iron that is bolted to your bed facing back toward the winch, and then through these two holes here, these would be on the bottom, bolt these directly into the deck of your truck. The reason for that is because this thing provides tension, it actually becomes part of the load on the winch, and having those extra bolts is just a little bit of necessary support. As you can see, my fairlead mount is actually part of a worn hidden hitch system. I bought several parts of it from a guy, and it ended up this was the only thing I was able to use. So I've got to make some braces to actually go from these mounting holes back either against the winch or down to my plate here. So I've still got to get that done. I would need to do that before I did a whole lot of heavy winching with it. But it's on, and for demonstration purposes, it'll work for tonight. As you can see, the cable's just laying there. It's slack. It's, you know, there's no tension, there's no pulling, there's no nothing. And I can reach in here, and it's pretty tight in there. And we can spool it in, and I'm not even going to hold it. I'm just going to spool it in. And you'll see it's rolling in there fairly tight. I could adjust it up a little more. It's getting a little loose on that last string, but it is certainly functional. One thing to be aware of is you can adjust the tension on these springs here. They've got a 1/4 inch bolt that comes through the bottom, and you tighten them down with a 7/16 wrench. BA says to tighten them until the springs are fully extended. I stopped just a little bit short of that. I did tighten them all the way down at first, and then I backed them off. The reason for that is when you go to pull this cable out, this tension roller does not care which way that cable is moving. It's going to crank down on it. So you actually, instead of being able to just kind of take it with a couple of fingers and guide it as it comes out, you've actually got to pull this thing out. And let's see if I can do that one-handed. There we go. See, where I wasn't pulling fast enough, you can see that coil right there actually loosened up because the winch was pushing that cable out faster than I was pulling it through the tension. So I'll lean on it, snug it up a little bit, and then just kind of guide it. I'm not pulling on it, I'm not putting any tension on it. I'm just keeping it straight left to right as we're going in, because this doesn't do a whole lot for that. And as you can see, it actually pinches the cable pretty well while you're pulling it in. So there you have it. That's the BA cable tensioner fairlead. I'm pretty happy with it for no more than what I've done. If nothing else, even if the tensioner turns out to be more trouble than it's worth and I take it loose, this is still a really, really nice fairlead. But I'm happy with the tensioner. I expect a lot of good things from it. I've got to get my last two little plates made there, and then I should be good to go, should be finished. So there you have it. Something to consider. I'll put links to all this stuff in the description. They make a few different sizes of these for different size winches. This one here is the 9-inch. It's the smallest one they make. The drum on my winch measures about 8 3/4 wide. The 9-inch, I thought the 9-inch was going to end up being a little too wide, but it's actually just maybe not even a 1/4 of an inch narrower than I would really want it to be. But the next size up from this is an 11-inch. That might have been better. That might just be way too big. But I've got this one. I'm going to stick with it. there you go.